Hello, wonderful human beings, and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Remy, and I share lots of vegan recipes and tips to help you live well. And this is another video in my Plants Please series, a series where I share all of my best tips to help you transition into more of a plant-based vegan diet or just eat more plants. And today we're going to be talking about my top 10 recommended appliances, kitchen tools, things that will level up your cooking game. Alright, so before we get into the video, I just wanted to let you know that all the links for everything that I mentioned in this video will be in the description box below. So let's get into the video. These are in no particular order, but number one is a food processor. So I love food processors because they're great for breaking things down. You can also make nice cream in them. So before I had a blender, I would actually make all of my nice cream and smoothie bowls in a food processor. It's a lot easier to clean than a blender in most cases, but I also love it for making a nut-based vegan Parmesan. I love to make bliss balls. Food processors are not only amazing for sweet treats, but also great for making savory dishes like falafel, all kinds of vegan sauces and dressings. And you could even use it to chop veggies. If you're somebody who doesn't like to spend a lot of time chopping, you could use it to process onions, carrots, celery, whatever you need. I would highly recommend, especially if you have the counter space for it. I recently upgraded from this mini size that I had. Number two is a blender. So like I said, you can do a lot of blending functions in the food processor, but for more versatility, I really do like to have a blender. I use it a lot to blend my soups. I also make smoothies in my blender, and as somebody who cooks often, it's one of my most used appliances. It does take up a bit of space, but I would recommend it, especially if you're somebody that cooks in larger quantities. A food processor can be handy if you're making small batch items, but sometimes when you're using a blender, if you don't have enough content in the container, it'll be difficult to blend. So it kind of depends on what type of cook you are. Both have their own purpose, but I would recommend having one or the other because they are really, really handy. I use a high power blender, and I really thought it was worth the investment because I can break down most ingredients. So even things like nuts, I can turn into nut butter, for example. I can blend frozen fruit with no liquid added, and it's just really amazing to have. Number three is a baking mat. So I really love using non-stick baking mats. You've probably seen them in a lot of my cooking videos, and I recommend them in most of my cooking recipes, and that is because it makes cleanup so easy. But beyond just that, it makes cooking a lot easier because things will not stick to the bottom of your pan. You don't have to worry about greasing or oiling up whatever you're using, and in that sense, it's a lot more sustainable because a lot of people like to use wax paper, parchment paper, foil. You don't need that when you have something like this that you can use over and over again, and I really do notice a difference. The ease with which things come off the mat after baking is just unbeatable. It's pretty affordable, and over time it will pay for itself because it replaces the need to keep buying parchment paper and things like that, and it doesn't take up really any space in your kitchen at all. Number four, mason jars and lids. This might sound really silly, but I love mason jars because they're really affordable, they're very versatile. I use them in so many different ways, and you can find them just about anywhere. So I really like to reuse almond butters and things that come in glass jars, wash it out, and then use those jars as mason jars. But you could also purchase like a 12-pack of mason jars. And then I also recommend reusable lids just because over time, sometimes the metal in the lid will start to rust, and it's just not great for extended use for that reason. I love using mason jars for storage, but I also use them as cups. So I'll make a matcha latte in them, for example, or serve water in them when friends come over. They're very, very versatile, and they can be used even outside of the kitchen as well. Number five is a mandolin. So a mandolin is really handy because it's a great way to chop things very finely and in a uniform width without cutting your finger. Mandolins can be a little tricky. Actually, I have gotten it cut from a mandolin before. They are great for making sliced cucumbers. Radish especially I think looks so beautiful when you use a mandolin, and you can always adjust the width of the item that you're chopping. So I would definitely say it's worth it. It could save you a lot of time. Number six, this might be a little bit random, but a milk frother. So there are two kinds of milk frothers. Basically, there's a handheld one, and then there's kind of like a stationary appliance. I invested in the appliance this year because I'm somebody who drinks lattes basically every single morning. But what I love the most about it is that it also heats up the milk that you're frothing. So I find it a lot easier to use than a manual hand frother, and you can also set it and forget it. Let it do its thing while you're preparing like the matcha in your glass. I really like it. I would say if you're someone who drinks a lot of lattes, it's probably worth the investment. It's kind of one of those things that takes your homemade latte to a cafe level of latte. And if you are somebody that buys your coffee out every day, you are most likely going to end up saving yourself money by making it at home. Number seven is an Instant Pot. I kind of felt like every vegan I knew and every home cook I knew had an Instant Pot, and they were raving about it. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I got the smaller version because I do live in New York and I have limited cabinet space, but I really, really love it, especially if you're making things from scratch like beans, rice that could take a long time to cook, for example. It shortens the time, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be quicker than using the stovetop, but what it does is it minimizes the hands-on time to like 1 minute to like 3 minutes sometimes, kind of like a dump and go situation. So I have really liked it. Love it for making soups, love it for making beans, even quinoa porridge, which I included in my older video. I love it, and I totally get the hype. You could also grab like a crock pot or a slow cooker. It's a similar concept, except I believe the Instant Pot is more of like a high pressure cooker. So I love my Instant Pot, and I'm really happy that I jumped on the bandwagon. Number 8 is cookware. So I feel like this is really important because if you're cooking at home, chances are you're gonna need some kind of cooking equipment. I think the most essential pieces to have are some kind of pot and some kind of pan. Other things may not be as necessary depending on the kinds of things that you like to cook, but I also think a Dutch oven is a great way to go. So I definitely think it's worth it to invest in some kind of quality cookware if you are gonna be cooking a lot. Number 9 is a good knife and a knife sharpener. One of the most dangerous things you can do in the kitchen is have a dull knife, and the reason is when you're struggling to cut something and you have that resistance, that is when accidents are bound to happen. So when there's sliding and slipping, that can be very, very dangerous. And even though you may think that a sharper knife is more dangerous, it's actually not the case. It's the other way around. So I recommend a quality knife that will last you a very long time, and then also a sharpener, which will help you maintain your knife's sharpness. So it's a good idea to have both, and I promise you it will make the world of difference when you're prepping your ingredients for recipes, or you're chopping something as simple as like a tomato, for example. Number 10, last but not least, an air fryer. So what I really like about the air fryer is that it's very compact, and if you don't have an oven, I think it's an awesome alternative. Air fryers do definitely work a lot more quickly than a traditional oven. So when I want something in a pinch, or if I have a frozen item that I want to defrost, I'll usually use my air fryer. If you are a college student and it's allowed in your dorm, I also think that would be great, or if you're living in a small space without an oven, because some apartments actually don't have built-in ovens, this would be a great countertop appliance to have in it. So I make everything from frozen French fries in it to waffle fries. Everything that I just mentioned is a fry, but also things that are supposed to be crispy and baked, like potato wedges. Wait, that's also potato. Anything that needs to be baked, like if you get frozen vegan chicken tenders, for example, pop them in the air fryer, they get so crispy. And the best part is it does give you kind of like that fried texture, but you don't need to use as much or sometimes any oil. Now we're gonna do one more bonus, because this isn't necessarily a tool or an appliance, but it is something that I think is important for new cooks or any vegan cooks out there, and that is a good cookbook. Now when you're starting out cooking, I think it is nice to have a cookbook on hand for inspiration and to kind of just learn the basics of some recipes that you really enjoy. So when you're first getting into cooking, I think it can be kind of tricky to figure out how to balance flavors and dishes. Having a blueprint of sorts is a great way to kind of get more comfortable with doing that. And then once you have recipes that you really like, you can start to riff off of them, change seasonings out a little bit, but you don't have to start from scratch, and it is a really awesome way to go. Some people I know still cook from cookbooks, even though they've been cooking for years. So it really comes down to personal preference, but I think especially if you are new to the vegan diet, having some staple recipes in a cookbook to follow along makes things a lot easier. Now that I've been cooking for so many years, I don't often look into cookbooks, but I have some great recommendations by friends of mine that I've really loved. So number 1 is Simply Delicious Vegan by my friend Caitlin. Another one is Vegan Classic Comforts. I don't have this cookbook with me in my kitchen because I actually left it at my family house so that they could cook out of it more. But it's a great one. You guys probably know Lauren Toyota here on YouTube makes the most delicious comfort food. And Caitlin, her recipes are very wholesome and nutritious, but also delicious at the same time. That rhymes. And I think if you like the way that I eat and the recipes I share, you will love her cookbook. So those are 2 great ones. I also love the Oshi Lowe's cookbook, and she recently came out with another one, which I now have and love. Oshi Lowe's was like a classic for me when I first went vegan. I think she was one of the first blogs out there that would always pop up when I was searching for recipes, and so I kind of feel like I owe a lot of my baby veganism years to her, you know what I mean? And then one more I want to throw in there for like desserts, and that is No Bake Vegan Desserts by my friend Christina. I've known Christina on Instagram for so many years. It's actually pretty wild, and I've never met her in person, but she's, I promise you, the queen of desserts. Check out her Instagram feed, look through the book. It's beautiful, and I love her dessert style, so that would be a great one for my sweet tooths out there or anyone who wants to kind of sharpen up on their dessert skills. Well friends, that brings us to the end of the video. As I mentioned, everything that we talked about in today's video will be in the description box below, and let me know what your essential cooking tools are in the comments below. Also, it's important to note that you don't need every single piece of equipment that I mentioned in this video. I think it's important to pay attention to the way that you cook, your cooking style, the food you like to make, and also how hands-on you like to be in the kitchen. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you in another video soon. Don't forget to give this a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!